Hello, this is Dale Matthews, Inside News. I'm here with Mike Jones. So much has been happening this week. Mike, tell us about it a little bit, would you please?
Oh, yes, I can tell you everything that's happened this week. We had that very interesting show there on KAJO, and we're prepared, if necessary, to go on for probably 2 or 3 days with the rest of the content on that show. But somebody drew my attention to the budget committee hearing that took place yesterday afternoon. And I started watching it, and I was amazed at what took place there. And so we do have some of that video available, and we're going to let some of that stuff roll and comment on it, just as though it was the KAJO show that we were listening to. And, so that's
Let's do it.
Real good stuff.
Okay, so we can comment at any time, and so can you. We won't be able to hear you, but we know you're out there commenting and throwing stuff at the screen. Be careful.
We'll open it up for...
I have another motion that I'd like to make.
Yes, Ms. Goodwin.
I think is appropriate at this time. I could wait until the final meeting, but I think we'll have a lot to discuss then. And because we were discussing public safety and public works at this meeting, I'd like to make the motion now.
Okay.
I move that we allocate $1.5 million from the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund to the Sheriff's Department for road patrols pursuant to HB 4175 to offset anticipated budget shortfalls in coming years.
So the motion on the floor is
and there's stunned silence.
$1.5 million from the Public Works Reserve Fund to the Public Safety Fund, specifically the Sheriff's Office, as designated under House Bill 4175 for road patrol program.
What a strange kind of emergency this is turning out to be. How can they possibly go back to the governor and say, it's an emergency here, but we have a status quo budget, which they were instructed to do several months ago, about a year ago, and we're turning down giving any more money to the sheriff,
right?
No matter what kind of emergency we have. Turning down giving him more money.
Yeah, I think, though, that the problem that we have here is that they can easily go to the governor. The governor's not going to care. The governor knows what sort of little maneuvers they're trying to pull down here, and is probably completely complicit with whatever they want to do. But it's clear, I think, playing this is greatly illustrative of who we're dealing with here. You have 3 corrupt members of the Board of Commissioners and their appointees, and 1 token conservative person that they, without question, wish was not in the room. Because she is going to proceed to slice them and dice them and make julienne fries during this whole thing.
Here's Margaret Goodwin.
To offset, and not to be used immediately, but to offset anticipated budget shortfalls that we know are coming.
Okay. Second. It's been moved and seconded. I'm not going to reiterate the motion. Deliberation.
Keith laughs.
The reason that I'm proposing this amount, last year, we were told that there was $500,000 approximately in the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund that was eligible under HB 4175 to be allocated to sheriff's patrols. That was our last budget meeting last year. About a month later, the county received another $1 million that is also eligible under HB 4175 to be used for sheriff patrols. This year, our beginning balance is over $1 million higher than it was last year. So all of that money should be still available to be allocated to the Sheriff's Department. That's why I chose that amount of money. The Sheriff's Department primary source of funding has been SRS payments. Those have already ended. They may be extended. If they are extended, it's likely to be for a reduced amount, as it always has been in the past. What are we going to do when the SRS funding runs out? Fortunately, we're now litigating against the BLM to restore timber harvest to the levels mandated by the ONC Act, but that's going to take a number of years before that comes to fruition. So we will likely need some bridge funding, and it's likely to be a very long bridge. Hoping that the taxpayers will agree to a property tax levy, I think, is a pipe dream. This is a very poor county. This county's poverty rates, our unemployment rates, our food stamp dependency rates are consistently among the highest in the state and always well above the national average. For those of us who are comfortably off, it's sometimes difficult to remember that many, many people in this county, particularly out in the rural areas, struggle every month to just feed their families, pay their utility bills, and stay on top of their mortgage to keep from losing their homes. And expecting these people to raise their property taxes is like trying to squeeze blood out of a stone. It's not going to happen. So what do we do when the SRS funding runs out? Do we just shut down the sheriff's department and say, see, I told you so? That's not a solution. We need to think strategically and plan ahead. We can't wait till the money runs out and then have to choose between keeping the jail open and eliminating sheriff's patrols. That's just because we didn't have the foresight to plan ahead and set money aside, knowing the budget for shortfalls were forthcoming. Now, the Public Works Department is permanently funded, mostly by fuel taxes, but these are our dedicated funds that cannot be used for anything else. The Title I road dollars make up a pretty small fraction of Public Works resources, and it's an unreliable fraction because it can vary from year to year. They don't use that for operating expenses to do chip seal and those things. That is all put in the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund. The balance last year in the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund was the highest it's ever been since that fund was established in 2008. This year, it's over $1 million higher than it was last year. And I totally understand that we ought to have more money in that than that in the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund, because reserve funds are very important. They're important as a financial buffer. In the event of an emergency, you don't want to run out of money. But if we do a risk assessment across all the departments in the county, the department that is at the greatest risk of running out of money is the Sheriff's Department, and there is no reserve fund for the Sheriff's Department at all. And that's what I'm asking that we establish. And you know, the Rob Brandis does an excellent job, and I would like to commend him because I think he's an excellent department head, and he clearly takes pride in the quality of our roads. Last year, Commissioner Hare cited a survey that said that our roads in Josephine County are well above the state average, and that's for a poor county. Mr. Brandis clearly takes pride in the quality of our roads, and I totally respect that. And I wish that every department head took as much pride in delivering the highest quality of service possible with the funds available to them as Mr. Brandis does. And I think he's an excellent public works director and should be commended for that. But as the budget committee, our job is to take a broader perspective and look across the whole county, not just at isolated departments, but to holistically look at the priorities and requirements of the county as a whole, and to ensure that we're funding the highest priority services with whatever funds are available. And so if we take $1.5 million from the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund now, it will still be at the same level that it was 2 years ago, $2 million, which was what was shown on the slide earlier. And that will give us some reserve for the Sheriff's Department when the SRS fundings run out. And we don't, and you know, it's not acceptable to have to choose between keeping the jail open and not having any patrols. And that's why I made this motion.
Now, Mike, do you think that she sounds like she's babbling or unreasonable?
Oh, she's completely bonkers, out of her mind. I can't believe what this woman is suggesting, that we fund our shortfall in the sheriff's department with money that we already have. I mean, that's insanity. We should tax the people more. That's the only real solution.
It's so we know, we all know what the answer is going to be from the characters, but how can they possibly say,
Yes.
well, no, let's not?
But we get the benefit of being able to watch that happen.
Yeah, I haven't even.
Yeah, well, you know, and
this day. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's the benefit of this video, is you get to see her make a very clear, a very a well thought out case for using this money. And then you get to see them, and you can tell that these people do not want it at all. They're not interested in it, and in fact, they're a little bit miffed that she's actually suggesting that yet again. How dare her?
Well, I did not have the advantage of being there at this meeting, and it's increasingly frustrating to go to these meetings. I'm sure it is for Margaret Goodwin as well. I just wonder, after a while, you already know the end to this debate, sort of, but they're really going to continue driving full speed toward that wall. I mean, already Simon Harris says, well, I'm not going to run again. Cheryl Walker is out. Keith Hick is hanging on by his fingernails. These other people have been appointed by this same kind of board. It does remind me a little bit of the challenges coming up with not to get into national politics, sorry, but with the Supreme Court. The people who are on this board and making these decisions, you know, we've said it before, this is the most important committee that there is in this county. And
right.
They're really going to stick to this and absolutely refuse to budge the budget committee that won't budge? Really?
Right. Yeah. Well, the thing that I think is so great here is, she lays out the case, and she even says, listen, you know, are we really going to, run ourselves completely, willfully run ourselves completely out of money, and then go, see, I told you so, and be up against the wall, so that the only possible solution is for the people to pay higher property tax? I believe the answer to that is yes. But she's positing it as a ridiculous hypothetical, that like, surely you're not considering this. Oh yes, they are.
Wow, here she is. Let's hear what their answers are. You already know. Good night, everybody.
Anyone else wish to comment?
Come on. No comments?
I'll just make one comment that I don't agree with that assessment, because we don't decimate a department that some of those very out in rural areas rely upon to have roads to access. Just as some of the examples that Mr. Brandis has shown, that some of the people that live in these rural areas, if the culverts go out, the road washes out, or there's a mudslide or a rock slide or something, they wouldn't even be able to get to town. If we had no money to remove it, we would be in a world of hurt, and we don't.
Now, I've used this example before. Sorry if people are bored with it, but it is like having a fire in the kitchen. Mm-hmm. And hey, honey, go get the extinguisher from the car. Well, now, wait a minute. One of these days, we might need that. Well, yes, but there's a fire in the kitchen right now.
Yes. It's stupid. Well, Wilbur's going to be stuck on the other side of the creek. We're going to have somebody come and throw him a loaf of bread every couple of days just to keep him alive over there, because we were so selfish and took that money instead of putting that culvert back in like we should have. We gave it to the sheriff. The weird part
about it is that Simon Hare has said, he actually said at one of these meetings, not a budget meeting, but at a weekly business session, well, you know, we probably have as many deaths now attributed to road conditions as we do to sheriff shortfalls.
Yeah. Listen, I suggested here that there's obviously some plan, some nefarious plan that these guys are cooking up that none of us, outsiders are privy to. We just don't get it. And you can tell because they get impatient. You can tell. See, Margaret is very calmly laying this out. It's just, I'm just being rational here. But you can tell that Cheryl's thing is like, again, you can't decimate a department. What is wrong with you? Cutting it into 10 pieces. You're just crazy,
Well, we had that thing at the earlier budget meeting, the last one I want to go to until there's a new election. Okay, really. And Simon said, well, and we talked about this last night. Simon said, well, we'll deal with that issue at the next budget committee meeting, which was this,
right,
about what to do with the money that came in. We'll deal with it because they had not placed it as robbing for Peter to pay Paul. Well, Peter didn't have the money yet. And so we'll discuss where that money's going to go. And then on yesterday's KAJO show, when Marty Sether asked Cheryl a question, she was like, oh, yeah, that's already in there. Now, wait a minute. You just told us you were going to discuss that, and it's already in there?
Yeah, but in reality, this is semantics because it doesn't really matter if it is in that fund. They can rip it right back out of there, and Mr. Brandis wouldn't have anything to say about it. So anyway, there's more. There's more.
Oh, great.
Have that large of a reserve to begin with. The one slide was, I saw in here now, $133,000 just for one slide out on Galeese. So I would also like to note and bring to the attention of the board that
just before we go note and bring to the attention of the board, this was Cheryl Walker who had said at one of these meetings that the cost for that rock slide might be $1 million. They're not even trying to be careful with the numbers anymore, Mike.
Well, now wait a minute here. Do you have the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund? And then is the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund their operating budget, or don't they have an operating budget that is outside of that? These are the normal funds that we use. Do they use the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund every single time they do anything? I thought that was just the overage. If they happen to need more than what their budget allows, then they go do that. And
it would make sense to me, and we've discussed this too, that if you're going to have an emergency fund in general, that emergency theoretically could have been about water testing, $135,000. It could have been about this rock slide, $133,000. It could be something the sheriff wants. If he wasn't so anemic in his request, well, I would like to have a status quo. Really? And so you could take all of those things, put it into the emergency fund, and then when someone has a legitimate emergency, they could come before the commissioners in front of the people who would also get a chance to hear this, argue their case, and get some of those emergency funds. But we're not doing it that way, are we?
No.
More of Cheryl. They're taking it right up to the wall.
The sheriff himself in his presentation did not ask for any additional funds from the road fund.
There you go.
But the sheriff in his presentation did say in his last bullet point that his greatest concern is what's going to happen next year when the SRS funding isn't there anymore. We don't have an answer for that. It's not responsible to just wait for the other shoe to drop instead of having the foresight to plan ahead and set money aside for the budget shortfall. Coming.
Ms. Goodwin, I'm going to ask you to be recognized by the chair in the future so you can have a civil discourse. I will provide.
Oh, man.
Can't you be civil? I mean, listen to how out of control she is.
Oh,
really.
She's just unbelievable. Put her in irons, for crying out loud.
She's doing what she can. And here's the advice that I believe that I can extend to Peggy Goodwin, Margaret Goodwin, from both Mike Jones and Dale Matthews. I think so. Peggy, hang in there. Don't be leaving out of disgust or anything like that. All that we need is, just like the Supreme Court, all that we need is two fiscal conservatives, okay? Hopefully. Then you take Simon Hare and you listen to what he says because he's elected. Doesn't mean you need to follow his instructions. And then you say goodbye to two others that were handpicked to be levy supporters. I mean, Jim Brumbach, you can't get much. I mean, this was the guy that was up in front of the church. You know, well, he's here to answer your questions about Jesus. No, about the levy. And what you, is you say goodbye to those guys. And then it doesn't mean that you're packing the Supreme Court. It just means you've got people who are saying, okay,
let's understand. And this election season gives us a lot of lessons in the way things actually work. Now, you know what? If you're in control, then you do pack the board with your people. And guess what? The board is packed, and they have one token conservative on there who is probably more representative of the people in the county than anyone else on that board. And Simon is doing exactly to her as you're proposing to do to Simon. And that is allow them to talk. And then when you're done, you say, thank you very much. We're going to overrule you in mass now. And that's what you do to him. That's completely legitimate. Not a damn thing wrong with it. So,
well, at the very least, if you're going to do that kind of thing, you should at least side on with the majority of the people who've decided what they want again and again and again. And like we've said here before too, well, maybe the people didn't understand. You notice they don't say that anymore because the people do understand. And they've made it very clear. And these guys understand. The only way they can succeed with this kind of thing, with not funding an emergency, listen to that again. Not funding an emergency. The only way that it can succeed on this is to ignore, just literally ignore, like the city council's doing. Ignore the people and what they're saying because they're not doing what you want them to do. They're not doing as they're told.
Right. Well, and that's a point because this does illustrate the difference between the people and the commissioners on the question of law enforcement funding, and so they can't just come out and say, "Hey, we are withholding this money for the purpose of keeping the sheriff's department intentionally." At a low funding level so that we can achieve our goal of getting some sort of forced funding out of you people. They cannot reveal that. So instead it's deception. We have to lie because listen, Simon and none of the rest of that board gives a damn about potholes or culverts or anything. If a massive flood comes through here and washes out a bunch of culverts, or we have an earthquake, there's going to be state and federal funding that pops in as well.
There's going to be at least some.
Yes.
Right.
Of course. So all of this is a straw dog here. It's not real. The whole point of this is just so that they can keep the sheriff's department at a very low funding level, and that bad things will happen as a result of that will force people into, I mean, you realize what I'm saying here. Bad things will happen as a result of low funding at the sheriff's department that will force people out of fear to raise their own taxes. That's what's happening here. And that's what this board represents. And there's only one person who is speaking sanity here. And that continues, believe me, this continues on just like it is with the banter.
Because it's our show and we've earned, after all these shows in a row of always being here for you, we get a chance to speak up every once in a while. So we do a couple more shows on this. I'm okay with that. I've been kind of wrong about something and might as well confess it. What I've been saying is that when the tide kind of turns here, because it can't go any farther than, I mean, this is ludicrous.
You never know.
Well, that's true. There are candidates.
There are candidates who are going to continue with this, have made the point already on the campaign trail. All you got to do is watch some of those videos that are behind Dale's head there, and you'll see there are some candidates who are speaking just exactly the same as some of the people on this budget committee that say, "Oh, no, you can't do that."
Status
There
quo.
are some. So we could continue with the very same thing. So I'm telling you, people, do not go for the best sign. Do not go for the one that everybody else seems to be voting for. You need to make your own decision. And yeah. And
Can we
look
get
at
people to vote for the most logical solution to some of this?
okay. Yeah, but I mean, you have to do a little
really
studying. You have to study and find out who those people are before, the thing is that there are people and the people that you should be concerned about are funded by people who are interested in only one outcome. And that is pass another levy or some sort of, quote, permanent funding solution. And
Right.
You know what that means.
When they say bridge to nowhere, what do you think they mean? They mean we're not
a levy.
Yeah. So where I think I've made a mistake here is that, and I've really been reconsidering this whole idea of having an emergency fund, and then the people who are experiencing what they define as an emergency, we need to restripe those roads, or, okay, well, cleaning up culverts is, of course, that's important. I've been saying all along, well, maybe we should immediately make that money available to the sheriff. One of the problems with that is that when Gil Gilbertson first ran, he said, whatever you give me, I will not come back and ask for more. I'll live within my budget. All right. Well, maybe you love Gil Gilbertson. He did not do that. I was there the next day after the election. He said, I'm going to need more money. Okay. And this new guy that's in there, he said, well, do you remember? I mean, I hope you guys remember, I will live within the budget. I understand what the people say that they want. I will deliver you all the services that I can. That week, he was there asking for more money. So because of the presentation that he made in front of these guys, and we're going to see that, it's anemic. Okay. I mean, we were saying, when are you going to press for this? Well, you heard Cheryl even say, well, he asked for the status quo. Maybe. Okay, I think there's a solution for this, so don't let me run out of steam here completely.
Okay.
Thank you. Maybe the right thing to do is to make the money more easily available to the sheriff, so that guy is so embarrassed by not actually using the extra personnel or the money that's available or anything more than the status quo, nothing more than the status quo. Maybe we can encourage him, as Mike, you saw Mike and I doing this on tape this summer. Here we were trying to encourage the guy, would you please step forward? Isn't it ironic that Mike and I and others that were going against the will of the people were the only ones that were standing up and saying, we couldn't even get the sheriff to do it, to ask for more money. Is he really?
And he doesn't
make it available to him.
Well, he didn't. He made a presentation there last night, and he didn't ask for more money. And one of the people in public comment, which is about a half an hour down the road from where you are in this video right now, makes that exact point. Says that she believes that the sheriff may even be not asking for any more money at the behest of people on that board who have requested that they don't ask for money. Now, that may entirely be possible, but what I think is actually more possible is that you have an ideological alignment between all of these people. They all understand we are working toward one common goal, and the common goal is extraction of more money out of the people's pockets by their own will. And there is only one way to accomplish that, and that is to have the sheriff funded at a subpar rate. That's the only way to do it. And he knows that. And so he'll fight hard for a levy. This guy will, he'll run out the clock trying his hardest to get down the field when you're pushing a levy. Anything else, forget it. If you're talking about existing money, no way. This guy is not for it in any way, shape, or form. So there is an alignment there between these people as to what they want. And I think that this is a keen observation on the part of this gal that, of course, we'll never see tonight because it's a half an hour, down the road from where we're at now.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. One other thing about all this is, I voted for levies the first couple of years I was here, and I thought, well, what's the matter?
So you used to be a bad person.
No. What I was trying to do is say, well, we're going to need to have some kind of funding, right? And can I afford it? Well, not really, but no. Actually, no. But it seems to make sense to me. After the third time, and people were still saying, no, wait a minute, something else is a factor here. People keep saying no. Now, when are you going to listen to those people? After 9 times? Or as KAJO or the Courier would put it, after half a time and half a year? No. People are saying no. Now the question comes up, do you have any respect at all, even if you think they're wrong, for people's votes? And they don't.
Apparently not.
And they say, I'm not going to ask for more money. And then they do ask for more money. Well, I'm not quite sure. And then Cheryl the next day said, well, that's the only way to go. Now, and the guy from the Courier, when he interviewed me, well, you're wrong and you ought to change your mind. Hey. And he asked me, well, when do the losers win? Well, he didn't put it that way, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. You know what? You know what is weird? It's almost as though they had a secret meeting, and that secret meeting probably happened about 3 months ago, because we never, ever heard this before 3 or 4 months ago. When somebody would come up and say, well, what about the 47% of people that voted for a law enforcement funding solution? And what's their option? They can't even purchase it. This is wrong. It's wrong. When do the losers win? And then all of a sudden you're hearing this all over the place. Did they have a memo that went out to these people? What is it?
And at what club could they possibly say that?
I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I don't want, listen, I don't know that they said this at the Rotary Club or whatever. I'm just saying, it's like, if you remember way back in the day, I mean, this is when it became very, very clear to me, as somebody who was interested in politics, but just watching the way media worked and the way the machine put the talking points out. And I remember very distinctly, there was one word, gravitas. And all of a sudden somebody said something about gravitas, and I don't even remember who it was in reference to, but it was in reference to some person having gravitas, which is, some special, I've got the foreign policy gravitas. And then all of a sudden, boom, everybody was saying it. They were all saying it. It was just a talking point that went around, and then boom, it was gone, and you never heard it again. It was a nice sounding word, and it probably fit their purpose. And now we're getting the 47% or 48 or whatever a number that they happen to use, but it's the almost 50%. We were almost a winner, but we weren't.
And the really weird part for Mike and I, you're watching this show, obviously. Many of you watch it every night. We're going to present it to you every night. And the media in this area, the sneak preview, are you kidding me? KAJO that won't even report on various things, don't even admit that things are happening. The Courier, this IV News. I got a chance to see Raymond Smith today. He dropped by to see me. Hey, thanks, Raymond. That's very nice. And gave me a little card and everything. Oh, okay, I'm going to be fine. And he was telling me about his experience at the second IV candidates night with Dan Mancuso from the IV News. And Dan was like all over this one guy, Raymond Smith, because he was saying, well, no, I think that we ought to follow the will of the people. Well, what about these 5 things? And you ought to do this and you ought to feel that. Is right. No, wait a minute. Again, this is my time at the microphone. I'm paying for this microphone. And
yes,
these guys are all aligned together. And it's like, well, wait a minute. No wonder we're the skunk at the dinner party, Mike and I are, because we're saying, well, okay, it's okay to disagree in America. Yeah, well, you're disagreeing with authority and that's Satan. No, it's not. That's how we started. And so we're asking questions about this stuff. We're playing back the tape. That's different than just having some loony idea, which we probably often do. We're playing back the tape, and you can see for yourself, if we ever get back to it, that this is what the other guys are saying. Don't lie to us. Have a little respect for the public. Well, I have no respect. Then would you please leave office like right now, today, and don't come back? If you have no respect at all, the media guys, well, you ought to feel this way. You ought to feel this way. What kind of media people are those? Well, let's watch a little bit more of their response to Peggy Goodwin.
But yes, Mr. Welch, you're next.
We talked a little bit about this under the supplemental budget. It's a little bit different, but as I was pointing out to the sheriff, when we look at the 17-18 year, the next year, the shortfall is about $5.5 million, not $1.5 million. So that even if this was moved, there'd be a tremendous amount of budget constraints still to be dealt with.
So the obvious answer is don't move any.
There's nothing that I'm aware of that would require that we do this transfer now. It could be done in the preceding year when we're dealing with the budget and the potential budget shortfall that we recognize.
Did you know what, Mr. Welch? Then stop saying that we're in an emergency. If we got time, well, we'll get around to that eventually. Just stop saying it. It's not an emergency. It can't be an emergency if you're not going to do anything at all about it.
Right. And listen, he's right about that they could pull that over at any time. But listen, it should be done, or at least it should be suggested so that there is, a message to the public that we're addressing this issue. But see, they want to use the emergency label, but not actually have the emergency. That's, I mean, they want the effect of it, but and that effect is only on us. It's not on them. It's not on any part of county apparatus at all. It's only on the minds of the people who are supposed to be making a decision that, damn it, they just won't make. Yeah.
Well, boy, what time this is. At least I hope it's interesting for you guys. All these candidates are running. Some of them have their solution is status quo. Some of them their solution is they say that they're interested in more transparency, but when you watch them, they're not interested in transparency. Just look at what they've done in the past. That's not transparency. There are those who say, well, I'm still kind of learning, but, they're putting out a big push there to be the person that gets into that position. Now, why? Is it because they're pushing for, more reform and fixing things? No, exactly the opposite. You've got some big choices ahead of you, and it's not a choice between radical something or other. It's a choice of, are you going to listen to what the people have to say? No. Are you going to obey the law? No, I'm going to run an illegal campaign, which is what Keith Eck is doing. It's illegal. Are you going to listen to just one small group of people or listen to everybody? They're not going to do that. This was really what's at stake. And so if you talk to your neighbors and they go, well, I think I'm not going to vote for the guy with the beard, but might vote for the woman that kind of has one. No, wait, no, this is not a smart way to decide this time. I was exaggerating.
I was not aware we had a bearded woman in the contest this year.
Yeah. You have a choice. Well, one of the choices obviously is people with background in Grants Pass city politics. And that, well, I've kind of changed my mind about the direction I'm going. Really? Based on what outward appearance? Well, because I'm running. And you've got people who do not want you to ask certain kinds of questions. Wait a minute. What do you mean you don't want to have people ask certain kind of questions? They're extremely sensitive. And you say anything to about it all, and we've done that. It's like, whoa, why are you asking that kind of question? Well, because you're running for office. Well, that's just not fair. We just stopped doing it. We just stopped because they were really, really upset. Super sensitive people, or folks that have, and a couple of people I'm talking about, that are single issue candidates. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. I mean, you're not even being honest now. You're a single issue candidate. Okay, it's a nice issue for you, but you have to decide whether you want this kind of stuff with this budget committee, or if you want a direction that's going to maybe solve some of these problems. These people are dead set against solving this problem. Mike, bring it home, bud.
Well, that's right. But listen, this is not news to anybody watching this show. We've been telling people this for a long time. And the people that watch this show, they're not stupid. I mean, they're people that are paying attention to local politics, and they see all these patterns. And even if they didn't see the patterns before, they've watched the show. They've seen enough of the video that we have played. It's not strictly our opinion that's convincing these people. They know. Because of what they've seen, and we're helping to connect the dots, but that alone is not what's convincing them, because they see another example and another example and another example of the same sort of behavior, and there's only one conclusion to draw, and that is that these people are aligned in a particular way, and they have a motive that they will not elaborate on, and so, but all I know about that motive that they won't elaborate on is it's not in line with what's best for me. So knowing that, I won't vote for anybody like that,
or even close to that borderline for me. Don't even get close to it. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for everybody for joining us. We will do the best that we can to keep you informed. I will leave you just with one thing. As Raymond Smith, Ray of Light, as Raymond Smith was pointing out to me today, he said, did you see the poll in the Courier? We've proven to you, and Mike did it live on the air, that was brave, that it's a fake poll. And they were talking about, well, who would you want in these positions? It's unbelievable, buddy, where those polls are coming out. I mean, you've got folks that were going, what? That person has admitted they don't know anything at all. They've admitted they don't know anything, and they're still polling really high. The media is part of this. And so what are we supposed to do? Well, we're not giving up. Just like Margaret Goodwin, we're going to encourage her to stick in there, and we'll keep pushing on this until at some point we help push them out the door. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.